turning to golf, it's been a newsworthy day, I think, after Tiger Woods played at the weekend as well for the first time in many months. Very happy to say that John Huggan from Golf Digest is with us. So John, Fred Ridley and the powers that be at Augusta have made their decision on the treacherous LIV golfers. And so the statement touched on Augusta's disappointment with the upheaval in the game. However, the key line is, they say, our focus is to honour the tradition of bringing together a pre-eminent field of golfers this coming April. And so that means, John, that Phil Mickelson, who was kindly asked not to come last year, Bryson DeChambeau, Dustin Johnson, Sergio Garcia, Brooks Koepka, Oosthuizen, Patrick Reed, Cam Smith, etc., will all pitch up at Augusta. Were you expecting anything different?
Well, no. I mean, this has come as absolutely no surprise to anyone, I don't think. I mean, the motivation for the Masters, as you just touched on, is to get the best field available. And there was no way that, I think by my calculations, there was going to be 16 LIV players would have been, excluded from the field. And the field at the Masters isn't that big to begin with. That's maybe 1/6 of the field that you would normally expect at Augusta. It's usually just below 100 or around 100. So 16 players is an awful lot of guys to turn away in a field that small to begin with.
I suppose that the other thing it does, and this will apply to all four majors, is it elevates them further. So any of the organising committees with any semblance of sense will be sitting around looking at each other and saying, well, obviously this is terrible what's happening in golf, but actually it makes our tournament bloody unmissable. Yeah,
you get the feeling there's been a few winks in the background, don't you? The majors have always been the biggest deal. Even the PGA in America, which is number 4 by a distance, is still way ahead of number 5, which is sort of universally recognised to be the Players' Championship. But yeah, I mean they're the biggest thing, and then now they're even bigger. I can't imagine that's causing too much consternation in St Andrews and USGA, Augusta, and PGA of America.
John, I think as journalists and I suppose sports fans, we will cheer on the story and cheer on chaos. So if Augusta don't pair Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods together and don't pair Rory McIlroy and Sergio Garcia together, then frankly, they're just not trying.
Well, yeah, you never know. There might be a bit of that. The USGA used to indulge themselves back in the days of Frank Hannigan was the executive director, and he always used to have the... He made the draws, and there was always some fun to be had in eliminating or finding what he used to call the asshole group. There was 3 guys who were not universally popular, shall we say, usually paired together. So there was always some fun in finding that one. Augusta less so, but yeah, you're right. I mean, why wouldn't they do that? I mean, can you imagine the eyeballs that would be on, Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods pairing?
I was looking at the Fried Egg podcast had their calculator out, and so they figure that for 2023, 15 LIV players will hit the criteria to make Augusta, generally the smallest field of any of the majors, of course. By 2024, we'll be down to 9 players, so that'll be a big drop-off in the space of 1 year. And then by 2026, we'll be down to 7 players, really just former champions in Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Bubba Watson, Schwartzel, Garcia, Reed, and then Cam Smith, and his exemption will still stand in 2026, having won the British Open this year. So you would pitch it, I suppose, as a reprieve for the LIV players and for Greg Norman as they try and organise ranking points, which would ultimately get more players into the majors in due course. So it gives LIV a degree of breathing room in that fight for ranking points, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said is dependent on everything staying the same. You have to think that there's going to have to be at some point in this fiasco that it's turning into, there's going to be some coming together. I mean, they've got to sit down around the table at some point and discuss, what we do going forward. I think probably before that happens, as a couple of people have already pointed out, I think Greg Norman would probably have to go as the head guy at LIV, and maybe Jay Monahan at the PGA Tour would have to lose his job as well. He's dug himself a pretty deep hole in terms of, there's no wiggle room left for Jay in terms of his reaction to LIV Golf over the last few months. So maybe those two things have to happen before any discussions come about. But you have to think that has to happen at some point. I mean, they just can't go on in parallel lines like they are at the moment. It's not good for anybody. It's not good, certainly not good for golf. I mean, as everyone points out, this is beneficial to the majors, but we're down to 4 times a year where we're going to see the very best players competing with each other, and that's great for the majors, but it's not so great for us as golf fans.
The venom with which Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods have called for Greg Norman to be sacked is quite striking. It's not something you see in golf all that often. Rory McIlroy gave a recent in-depth interview to Paul Kimmage in the Sunday Independent, and he said that Norman talking publicly about him really fired him up, and he resolved, in his own words, to be as much of a pain in Norman's ass as he possibly could. So that explains their issue. And Woods and Norman never seem to be close. It does suggest, though, I mean, if that's McIlroy's rationale, and he's welcome to it, and again, I don't know what the source of Woods' dislike of Norman is, it's far more personal and human than anything strategic. It's really like, we don't really like Greg Norman, so, let's take him down as part of this.
Well, that's exactly right. There's always been friction, certainly between Woods and Norman. I think it's a clash of egos at that level. Certainly, Greg's ego is as big as anybody's, even Tiger's. And Tiger's entitled to have a big ego. I mean, nobody's, in my mind anyway, has played golf. The best golf we've ever seen, let's say, is being played by Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
So if you've not got an ego, if you're capable of that, there's something wrong. But Greg Norman, it's always been slightly intriguing to me, the size of his ego, because great player as he was he a great player? I say that, but he was very much borderline. He's more famous for the tournaments where he screwed up and didn't win than the ones that he actually did win. So it's always been slightly intriguing to me, as to why he struts about quite the way he does. And as I say, there's always been friction with him, with Woods. Rory seems to have jumped on that bandwagon. He and Tiger are big buddies, of course, and probably Tiger's told him some stories behind the scenes that has poisoned Greg as far as Rory's concerned, even more than it was before. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of personal stuff going on here, and maybe they all need to rise above that to an extent if we're going to get a solution to all of this.
To chart this incredible year in golf, this bizarre year, in January, February, around the time of Riviera, when Mickelson's comments were leaked by Alan Shipnuck and the LIV Golf venture was declared dead in the water, and Dustin Johnson and DeChambeau released statements, pledging their fealty, to use John Rahm's word, to the PGA Tour. From that Sunday in February, early February, to where we are now, today, it's borderline unqualified success for Norman and LIV. So there is a feeling, for all the antipathy towards them, that money talks here, and there's lots of money behind this thing. How do you imagine 2023 is going to play out? Well,
there's rumours, jumping around about various names as to who's going to be next to join LIV. It's just seemed to me, though, that the very biggest names have already made their intentions clear one way or another. I'm not sure that there's anybody left available to LIV that would make a huge difference. And they're you say it's been a big success, and to an extent it has. I mean, the fact that they're still in existence.
Yeah.
But it's not been unqualified. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but I don't really care about who's winning these things. I've paid no attention really to the golf. I've paid more attention to the politics and all the stuff, the controversy that's going on behind the scenes more than the golf. In fact, I'd be hard pushed to tell you who won all the tournaments.
That's true. I know Dustin Johnson's won a bucket load of cash.
He won a lot of money, and that's you're right. You and I are on the same wavelength here. That's just about all I can tell you about it. And I mean, that's not good. No. Ultimately, the golf has to speak for them, and it's not, and it's whispering at the moment.
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, look, I don't know how much the John Deere Classic sets everybody's world alight.
Well, that too. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So.
But I do take the point. I suppose if there's a poster boy for what LIV represents, maybe it's Pat Perez, who's part of Dustin Johnson's team, has played atrocious golf, and by dint of being on the same team has won lots of money and has celebrated accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, good luck to him. He's at best a mediocre tour player, which is sounds terrible to say that, but if you're a mediocre tour player, you're still a hell of a golfer. But that's the best you could say about Pat Perez, and good luck to him. He's made, I don't know what he's made, but it's well into seven figures, and far more than he would have done had he stayed with the PGA Tour. So
Yeah.
the money side of it is kind of, again, it's kind of tacky, the whole thing. I mean, there's got to be more reason to play. I mean, I know they're professionals, but there's got to be more reason to play golf at that level than just money. You have to play for history and titles. And I always think that the establishment, if you like, they should build if they're going to look at what to do in the future, they should build everything around all the national opens. The famous old national opens. They're the ones that the titles that actually resonate with me far more than, as you just mentioned, the John Deere Classic.
Yes.
I don't care who wins that, to be honest.
No. Tiger Woods was in action over the weekend for the first time, top of my head, since he missed the cut at the Open at St Andrews, where he walked back over the bridge and waved goodbye to everybody. So he was playing in the father and son challenge, which really I didn't know existed until Tiger Woods started playing in it with his son Charlie. But Padraig Harrington, his son, were there. They finished fourth. We had Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth and Nelly Korda with their respective fathers. Lee Trevino, Gary Player there with their grandchildren. Vijay Singh and his son won the event. John Daly and his son won it last year. They finished second. It's a hit and giggle is what they all call it. But it's on TV, and Woods was playing. He has played twice, John, in the last 2 weeks. Very much in these ceremonial type matches. So this father and son challenge, and then the week before that, the match where he was with Rory McIlroy against Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. The key point here, as we try and predict Woods 2023, the key point here is he was in a cart.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The man can't walk properly. It's certainly not enough to play golf at that, certainly at elite level. I mean, that's you have to face the fact that that's an integral part of the game, like it or not. And clearly he can't do that. He's not physically capable of doing that. And I think if anything's going to finish Tiger Woods' unparalleled career, I think that's going to be it. Which is a shame. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned these Diddy events that he's been playing in. I mean, it sounds to me a bit like the AT&T Pro-Am and the Dunhill Links thing at St Andrews. I mean, they're great fun apparently to play in. I'll have to take the word of the players for that, but they're terrible things to watch. I mean, it's just. I mean, I go back to the no interest line, but I really don't care about these things. They're fun for the non-golf fan, I think, but I'm a bit snobby when it comes to these things, and I just don't care about that stuff.
Woods managed to get some of his speed back, his ball speed. So he was well into the 170s, which is very, very competitive and more than acceptable and good enough for an iron player of his quality to make hay with. So that led people to have the conversation, well, would you not just go around in a cart, Tiger? Like take a cart, you can get a medical exemption, it's allowed. He seems to be resolutely against that.
Well, it's been done before. It was Casey Martin, who was actually a college teammate of Tiger Woods. He actually had a condition, I think, from birth. I mean, his leg, I think he's since sadly had it amputated, his leg. But he couldn't walk enough to play, or not properly. And as you say, he was able to compete with a cart. It's like the senior tour. It's, again, I'm coming across as a real snob here, but it just doesn't look right. Certainly at the elite level. For the old guys on the senior tour, which is just, as you say, a bit of fun and a bit of hit and giggle, albeit a lucrative one. Fair enough, but and the Tiger's obviously of the same mind as me. I mean, he's just he's a bit of a traditionalist, and he's just not going to do it. And it's a bit like if he ever got the yips, I couldn't see Tiger ever going to a long putter or putting left-handed or any of that stuff. He'd stick with, like Tom Watson did. Tom Watson always refused, even in the midst of terrible putting problems, to make the switch. And some guys are like that. They just don't see that as proper golf. And Tiger's one of those guys.
Yeah, and you do see it more as that traditionalist streak in Woods as opposed to ego and almost the embarrassment of carting around.
Oh yeah, I do actually.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, he's jumping in the cart in these couple of events that we just mentioned, and that doesn't look that bad actually. And I'm sure he's not alone in being in a cart. I don't know for sure, but I'm sure there's other guys using carts in those events. But yeah, bottom line is Tiger's just not going to do that.
Yeah. So then we are talking at a push, 3 or 4 majors next year, maybe another tournament. I dare say Jay Monahan and the powers that be at the PGA Tour would love him to say, I'll give the cart thing a go, and I'll play in 10, 15 events. You know, that'd be the dream, really. On the year that was in the men's majors, John, to remind people, Scotty Scheffler wins the Masters, ascended to world number 1. McIlroy's Sunday marked his return from the doldrums, and Tiger played, which was the big story. Then we had the PGA, which Justin Thomas won. Epic Sunday showdown at Southern Hills in May. His second major, playoff win against Will Zalatoris. Will Zalatoris again in the mix, heartbroken by Matt Fitzpatrick at the US Open at Brookline, so Fitzpatrick won there. And then the Sunday at St Andrews, once again McIlroy to the fore, but Cam Smith with a 64 on the Sunday, extraordinary 64 on a Sunday to sweep in and win the 150th Open, and then promptly tell everyone he was heading off to LIV. 4 pretty good majors, you'd have to say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's terrific stuff. I mean, again, I'm a bit biased. The Open, especially, was epic stuff. You know, obviously Rory would have been the best story. I'm a journalist and I root for the story, but Cam Smith played some magnificent golf, and he putted magnificently, probably more to the point, in that last round, which Rory didn't do. I mean, Rory hit every green in regulation or better and shot 2 under par, 2 putting par 5s, but which is easy to do at St Andrews actually, especially when the pin positions are tucked away as they were on that last day. You can sort of become becalmed because you can't get the ball within 20 feet, say.
Yeah.
So you 2-putt from 20 feet a lot, which is exactly what Rory did. But Cam Smith was making those putts, and that was the difference. But still, there's still a bit of regret. It's not quite Tom Watson at Turnberry in 2009 when he came into the press centre and it was like a morgue because the story of the century had been snatched from our grasp. But I think most people were looking forward to writing the Rory story that day.
Yeah. I think we've all just about forgiven Stuart Sink, but I'm not even sure.
Yeah, not quite.
I suppose the conversation in golf at the moment, and that's as we head towards the Masters, it's like, is Cam Smith or is Rory McIlroy the best player in the world? And like, how kind of intriguing that it's LIV versus the establishment. Your side tells me you think it's Rory.
Oh, absolutely, Rory's the best player in the world. But I take the view that the best player in the world is probably most days is a different guy every day. Is the best player. It depends how you look at it. I'm not a big fan of the world rankings. I never have been. I know there's been a lot of talk about them recently, and I think it's if you actually look at it logically, it's kind of nonsensical to think that if you're playing in America and I'm playing in Europe, then I'm playing on different courses and different weather on different days, and than you are. And how can you possibly compare the two?
Yeah.
Plus, it's a subjective thing, and it's fun. I mean, if you and I went away right this minute and wrote down what we think were the top 10 players in the world, I bet you would be pretty close, maybe in a slightly different order. And I don't care. I don't think that either one of us cares who's 35th. It just doesn't matter. And the world rankings, if you think about it, the only people who really care about them are the majors. They use them to make up their fields. But I guarantee you that all 4 could come up with different systems to arrive at the same kind of field without the world rankings. So to be honest with you, I'd get rid of them.
As a final thought, is it your sense, say Woods' intention as he's outlined it is to play hopefully the 4 majors, maybe 1, maybe 2 others, and he hopes that lightning will catch in a bottle and he'll just have a 2019 kind of moment. That feels almost beyond remote.
Well, it's been done before. Ben Huggan did it back in the day. Following his car crash, he played about 6 events a year, 4 of the 3 or 4 majors. and was pretty successful doing it.
I didn't realise he played that few, actually. Wow.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I think in '53 he won 3 of the 4 majors.
Yeah.
Couldn't play in the 4th one, and I think he only played in a couple of other events in that whole year. And did that. I don't think he played in the PGA Championships, which was match play at that time after his car crash, because it was just too much. It was too many 36-hole days. He couldn't do that. So there's certainly a similarity to what Woods is going through. So if I'm Tiger, I'll have studied the history of it, and I'll be thinking, well, if Ben Hogan can do it, so can I.
Okay, that would be a hell of a story. John, thank you so much. Appreciate it.